Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wake Up Pueblo podcast studio. My name is Nick Folletta, and I have some very special guests.
You're special.
In the studio.
Nick's in the
Hello, and welcome to the Wake Up podcast. My name is Nick Folletta, and I'm in the Wake Up studio today, and I have two very special guests with me in the studio, Jacob Rivera, and of course, our very special guest, Joel Buhr, who I've been butchering his name for the past couple days, but now that he corrected me, I think I'll be able to get it right.
You got it right. You're spot on.
Joel is the president, of course, of First Direct, and he also considers himself a data disruptor. Is that correct?
That's always the goal. Hey, if we can disrupt some data, we're going to help businesses grow.
And how have you come to kind of acknowledge that name and kind of own that name? As opposed to an official title, I guess.
Right. You know, when I started the company, it was always not big about, hey, the title, this, that, or the other. People don't buy from you because of a title, really, frankly, at the end of the day. When you start a business, you're the president, you're the janitor, you're all of those things.
Chief everything officer.
Chief everything. Mm-hmm. So the absence of title lets you jump around when you're just starting out. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs can relate with that. So, but fast forward a few number of years, I had someone working with me, one of my marketing managers, and he's like, we need to think of a different, more creative title. And I'm like, what do you have in mind? He's like, Chief Data Disruptor, because what we do at First Direct, we help companies identify the right audience, help them get the right insights from that, and then execution. And it all starts though with the data that companies need to grow. So that's, if you can find the out of the box way to approach an audience using data, and that's where that all stems from. So, hey, we can disrupt somebody's marketplace just simply by saying, hey, what's a different way that we can approach it? Especially with today's technologies on big data, how it can be used, it can be incorporated into really getting in touch with the people that are ready to buy now, right? That's where, and you start using it in just very unconventional ways. I mean, a lot of people put too much crazy thought. Sometimes it's the most simplistic things, but if you have that right data, then there you go.
How do you identify when somebody is ready to buy now? What is the process of that? How have you found out how that works through data?
Through data, when big data again has opened up the door a lot on that. So you look at, hey, what is the path to purchase of somebody that's arriving at this location? So if they're arriving at a venue, for example, for an event, hey, where do they come from? Where do they, what's the path of journey? And so a lot of times when we're working with clients, we'll dive back to, well, what's the process that gets them here? And I want to know more about what's the main pictures. And there's some data points that are irrelevant. And so when you start to identify, hey, maybe age isn't relevant in this case. Maybe it's just gender. Maybe it's just, hey, we're going for females and they have to have children and those types of things. But now what's the path of purchase? Where are the places they shop? Those types of things. Those are all important. You guys think of that a lot here too at Wake Up as you're creating content and help people to really bring that journey into the visual.
Of course.
So.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know yet, Joel is going to be speaking at our Undercover Billionaire Bootcamp coming up here in February.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's going to be awesome. So we've been hanging out with Joel here for, quite a while, but he's been spending a lot of time here in Wake Up, and I've been getting to know him and his story. And so I want to know, Joel, tell the people a little bit about your story. How did Joel Buhr get here today? I want to know about way back when you told me, how did you get started in data? Right?
How did I get started?
Yeah.
I was always, I'm going to say it like this. I was always that kid that, you don't give the screwdriver to, because I'm going to go take apart every doorknob just to see how it works. I want to see how, what made it work. I was the kid that watched the construction workers, and I wanted to know how things worked. And so, fast forwarded to my teenage years, I started working in telemarketing and then, started working actually at one of the data compilers, American Business Information. They're now called Data Axle. And it was really kind of that fascination though of how data impacted businesses and how it grew businesses. That started actually when I was working at that telemarketing company. I was selected to go work in the field for a client, MC Squared. They're a division of Occidental Petroleum. Oh, cool. It was late 90s, and it was deregulation of natural gas. And so we used a data tool to identify business owners that were prime prospects to convert to a new client on natural gas. And so really simply using certain data touch points to identify, hey, who should we concentrate our effort in, either on visiting door to door, which was a lot of that, or on the phone. And of course, that's going to increase sales. So really simple, cool stuff in that respect, as far as, hey, you want to grow, you want to get sales, shorten the cycle down, and you can use data to do that. So it always interested me there. I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. And so when I went to go work at this data compiler and warranted, keep in mind, I'm like, I think 19 years old, and I started diving deeper into, I want to know how to do, how to add the missing elements. Well, what if the elements are missing? And so I had somebody that really taught me a lot of that journey there. And then, of course, fast forward, I worked for a few different data brokerage companies, and in 2005 started First Direct. So in First Direct, my focus when I started that is I wanted to always create the right solution that fits clients' needs, right? Because even today we can look around and we see that so many businesses are exasperated because they get sold things that don't work. They just got shoved a package, right, and it was the wrong thing. So if we can help them to get better insight, make better decisions, then we're helping a business grow. We're impacting people, we're impacting communities, and that's the fulfillment from doing what we do.
And what kind of pitfalls do you find that a lot of businesses run into when it comes to being sold a package that maybe they don't need, and how do you identify what they do need in order to grow and scale?
No, that's a good question. I think the first things first is a lot of people got to get clear real quick on who their audience is, and what's that journey of that audience. A lot of times what I see is people get sold different packages, especially with the day and age of social media, those types of things. They get sold these things saying, hey, this is the only thing you need to do. And it's not. So, a lot of business owners, they need to start to look at and see that, hey, listen, what's the right mixture of ingredients of marketing that I need to incorporate to grow? So, and we talked about this, I think, quite a bit here too, Jacob, in the last couple of days, is you have some businesses, maybe right now, they all need content right now, but maybe just because of budgetary constraints or where they're at, it's like they need to start with some of these old-fashioned grassroots things. Yeah. Right? Sure. Maybe it's flyers, maybe it's park benches or something like that. Something simple, but then they need to constantly be looking at how can I better understand who is transacting with me. So like a big pitfall that a lot of businesses have, they don't track the data. Real simple. Name, address, phone, email, those types of things. It can give you so much information to help you get a better picture of how to communicate. So like what you guys do here at Wake Up, I love it, is if you can get more information and know how to better create the story that helps communicate to that audience, the impact of that content now is just tenfold.
For sure. And how have you seen things change over the years as far as social media and how social media is able to benefit businesses in this day and age? Because like you said, in 2005 you were doing it. It's probably changed tremendously since then. Yeah. So.
Well, the concepts and the principles are all still the same. People are people.
Right.
Right? That hasn't changed at all. It's just the channels or the tools that you're going to use to execute or communicate to those people. Those things have changed. People still pick up the phone. They still look at their emails. I remember when email marketing came out as something that was really big. They thought that would be the death of more traditional methods like direct mail. It's not.
Still around, I know.
Still around, mm-hmm. and one of the top performers for some industries, right? Just simply hands down. So what I always look at is the one thing, you're going to have constantly innovation that's going to drive new ways to market, new ways to advertise. But the thing that still remains the same always is it comes back down to a person that you have to find out about, know as much as you can about, where are they at, and then figure out what's the best channel to talk to them on.
Right, because everyone has their thing, Yeah. Some people you might be able to hit a certain market in this area where it doesn't work for someone else. So, but with the data, once you have the data, you could understand and realize exactly where they need to be met at, right?
Right.
And you can educate and inform your clients on what the best route is on that.
Absolutely. You learn so much. I mean, if a business is trying to monopolize or get as much out of a market as possible, they need to understand that there's different clusters or layers to who their customers are. There's the customers, for example, you look at a restaurant, There's the customers that you don't need to advertise to them. They're just going to drive by. They're going to walk in. That's it. But then there's the more discount shopper. You need to maybe trigger them with some sort of an offer at the right time. And you need to keep touching them and keep touching them. So the day and age we're in, obviously people are getting just barraged with so much messaging. So the more relevant you can make that messaging, it's going to catch the attention. There's your hook.
And when you say relevancy, what exactly do you suggest people do in order to, and like you say, everything is so almost cluttered the way, there's so much information out there now. What exactly is it that you think businesses need to do to kind of stand apart from the competition and elevate their business?
No, that's a great question. So it really, using data, you can personalize your advertising so much more. So you can make sure that you're talking to the young mother, you're talking to the seniors or whatever the segment of that audience is. But businesses need to put more thought into simply, personalizing their advertising wherever possible. And sometimes that is, literally personalizing it with, hey, Jacob, we have what you need. And literally you can do that. And that's the nice thing with a lot of the different channels like email marketing or direct mail, those types of things you can do that on. Now on things like digital advertising, it's a little bit more difficult to do it on, but you can still do that. You can't say their name, but you can personalize to the things that are dear to them, that are going to trigger to them. Yeah. What they're looking at, for example, the retargeting, those types of things. A lot of times businesses, their biggest failures, they fail to market.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, for sure.
Yeah, and it's because they don't do the research up front, Let's just throw out these things and see if they work.
Right.
Instead of just going through the research and saying, hey, I have a really good idea of what's going to work because I already, So I could really appreciate the data industry and what you guys are doing. But I hate to redirect, but I really, really want to go back to, that beginning of what you were talking about when you started First Direct. And we were talking about it the other day about how you went through this journey of building your team, and there was certain catalysts that happened. And if you could go back to that, what was the catalyst that put you on like, okay, I need to go and start my own data company and go into my own market for me. Right. So what was that catalyst?
It's a lot of people that started businesses, they have an idea. They maybe are tired of working for somebody else, and they want to go do it. And that's what I started with. Hey, I have an idea. I know how to do this. I've been doing it at that point for about 4 or 5 years. Well over that, but 4 or 5 years at least. And I have my family. I wanted to take care of my family. So it was real simple reasons why at the beginning. And of course, those are still reasons that drive me right now. My family, my wife, my kids, those are a big why to me.
For sure.
As far as like, hey, I want to leave more for them than what I had when I started. Because that's, it's just because I want to leave something behind that I didn't have.
Right.
Right. When I started. So, I always thought too, like when I started my company, one of the thoughts that I had, and this is just simply because of the history of where I came from before, I always say that at the previous places I was at, I learned a lot of what not to do and a lot of what to do. And so I always wanted to be able to come home. We all can look at the news and we can relate to, this company, someone got in trouble for this, someone got in trouble for that, right? I always want to go home and be able to look at my kids. That was my early thought. It's like, and tell them, hey, I did it right. I worked hard today. We have a roof over our head. We have great things because I did it the right way.
Right.
Not the quick way, right?
I love that.
So kind of going back to like, how there's a lot of companies out there that are just after push the package even if it doesn't fit. It's like I want to make sure that I get somebody a solution because I look at it like that business is all their employees, their families, they're all working hard to spend that money with me. And it's my responsibility to do it the best possible way and not just simply say, well, it's my right to take your money.
Right.
Right.
Doing things right the first time.
Yeah. Well, it's hey, sleep. Be able to sleep with yourself. And a lot of people are like, well, hey, I didn't know. Are you leaving an impact? Like I want to leave a legacy. Not that my kids will take over what I've built.
Yeah.
Right. Or anything like that. But am I leaving a positive impact?
For sure. And you were speaking on that, how you just jump into meeting other people, like the way we've met and the way you met Matt, and you've met a lot of people apparently the same way, where you just come to impact lives, which I think is super awesome. But along the journey, you've picked up a lot of people along the way, right?
Yeah, along the way, the beautiful thing, like when I started this company, I mean, I think a lot of people, can put good thought into as far as, what relationships are you building? One thing I've definitely learned along this whole journey when I started First Direct in 2005 is the relationships you build, like with others, even when you're working for somebody else, are so important. And, doing things the right way will get you so much more mileage in the long run than trying to do it the quick and short way, which is usually has a little bit of, dishonesty connected to it. So do things the right way. People will come rally around you. They'll support you, right? Be genuine, be authentic about your intentions, about why you're creating a relationship or why you're reaching out for a relationship. So, that's one thing, we're all connected in the 10X community.
Yeah.
Right? So, especially in the last couple of years, one of the things I've seen is this, that go in with the correct intention of trying to serve and help, and it always will come back to you.
Yeah. So, what you got?
Well, I was going to say we have a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are ambitious to maybe start their own business.
Right.
They'll listen to this podcast, and I was wondering, what are some of the things you've learned running your own business for the past, decade plus, 15, 16 years, and maybe what are some of the things that people want to avoid, and what are things that they should be looking out for?
Right. No, that's a good question. Definitely, there's a lot of mistakes that I've made along the way. I look back, I'm like, man, I handled that wrong. I failed that person, and that tugs at me because I don't want to fail employees, right? And so I always take that a little personal. Sure. As far as like, hey, I don't want to let them down. That's my responsibility, is to try to not let them down. The things to do it right, though, number one, go out there and invest in the information, right? Go put yourself, even if you're like, hey, I've already heard this information before, like. That's one thing in the last couple of years I found very impactful for myself. There's many years I didn't do a lot of investment in personal development. I can't expect to go help my employees or help my company if I don't go help and fix information that I'm lacking for myself. So go make that investment in yourself, and now you can come back and you can be a better leader. You can have a better guidance on what to do next. So with what we're doing now, it's like we completely changed our culture as far as where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish as a collective company. So for those entrepreneurs out there, the advice that I would give is definitely go invest in personal development and be real, be true to yourself, be true, and look for the things that you do need to make adjustments on. I a lot of times will tell people too, especially like within the 10X community, what 10X means to me is you can't just simply go be massively successful in business and that's 10X. It's not 10X to me. But if you have a big gap on your spirituality, your family, those areas, it's like,
good point.
Shore those things up first, or else your business will kill those things.
Very interesting, and a
lot of people
totally right.
A lot of people don't hit on that topic, and that's really important. Having that good, solid foundation for your own self, and then recreating that amongst your team.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's when I started to analyze that like a number of years ago, it's like I realized, hey, I had gotten myself weak spiritually, weak on a family standpoint, but I want to grow my business. I want to make it really big, but I realize it's like I can't do that if I don't shore up these other things first, or else it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It's an empty pursuit.
So that's kind of what you got figured out was kind of your spirituality, your family, your
absolutely
have that strong base, that strong foundation, and that kind of blossoms everything else in your life, especially when it comes to business.
I kind of illustrate it like a tent. I don't know if you guys went camping when you were little.
Oh, sure.
Right? We didn't have much growing up, so we had the tent and we had the front yard, right? And oftentimes, I grew up in middle Nebraska, storms roll through, those types of things. If you don't lock down those four corners of your life, right, that wind's going to quickly, push in and you're going to get the rain in. So I always look at those four areas, your spirituality, your family, your friends, then your business. You can't have one of those be weak.
Of course.
So you got to take the time. So, I was eager to get my business to be successful, but I realized, hey, listen, just be patient. One of the things I learned is just be patient. And in some things, it's the steady endurance.
It's a marathon.
It's endurance.
Yeah. And you had a lot of grit and determination in the beginning. I'm sure there was a lot of struggles getting lifted off the ground before you were like 100% in there, you know?
Well, we had when I started the company, it's like we kicked off and we ramped up really good. Even in 2008, when the industry was going down, big, that was like one of our biggest years ever. It was fantastic. But then we saw this decline, and it's like, so I look back as far as, well, why the decline? Why that? It's just, I was lacking a lot of information, right? And I was lacking the mindset to keep on pursuing or keep on pushing forward. And there was at one point, my wife even said, "Are you sure you want to keep going? You sure, maybe you should just like sell it, close it down." I'm like, "No, I got clients that I know depend, and those types of things. I don't want to give up." So I think
you made relationships.
Yeah, relationships, right? So I'm going to let those people down. I don't want to let those people down, right? I owe it to them. I could have easily just shut things down and walked away.
Sure.
But to me, that's just not right.
And you've been helping us a lot with the Undercover Billionaire Bootcamp, and you mentioned the 10X community, and I think you're right. I think that means different things to everybody.
Right.
And they just want to focus on, what can they do in their life to get better and to grow by, 10X.
Right.
But
I think it comes back down to like you got to figure out what you're willing to stick with and endure with. And so the word endurance, I heard this recently and I like this. And it was like, endurance is like dancing with a gorilla. Okay, you don't get to pick when you stop, right? They pick when you stop, right? So you'd never question that. So sometimes, in order for that to make sense, you got to have your right whys in place. And so, why are you pushing hard? Why are you doing this? Why is your product or service impactful or beneficial? Why is it the right one? Why should people use it and need it?
Sure.
Those types of things. So, but I think the other important, all those important whys is, hey, is it ethical? Is it moral what I'm doing? Those types of things. If you got the answers, if you affirmatively answer, hey, ethical, moral, and, you got your why as far as why it's pushing you, now you got to start collecting people also too around you that can join in on that why. They have their own whys. But if you can share those whys with people, it's like you can create a fantastic environment, a fantastic culture, and make an impact.
Yeah, I mean the team. That's what we were talking about. Like in the Undercover Billionaire Bootcamp, is also one of the topics is building a winning team. But all that starts with the building of the great foundation, which it sounds like you put a lot of focus on, which some people do. Some people don't do, and some people do it on accident, but it sounds like you're very intentional with making sure you had a solid foundation and then scaling that within your team, which I think is super awesome.
And I appreciate that too. It hasn't always been that way too. It's like like I said at the beginning, it's like I made a lot of mistakes in that. So, the mistakes I made, I'm like, man, I failed that employee because maybe I failed that employee on building the team because I hired him, right? Not because I didn't do something for him. I just hired him.
Sure.
They were the wrong fit, or I let that person stay too long within the environment and it hurt the rest. So, when you start to get really intentional as far as, hey, what does this bigger picture look like? Then that's one of the things that I didn't look as hard at before. Like, okay, where do I really want to take this? What's the 1, 5, 10-year goal?
The North Star.
What's that vision? And then what's that? Then you start to backwards out on that. And what do I need to do that, right? Maybe it's, you look at your business, okay, what products or services am I selling right now? And what possible products or services I might need to be looking at to develop, to innovate, to bring to clients, to help them as we go. 5 years from now, the marketing world that Wake Up and First Directed, it's going to be a different environment. But there's going to be still some things that are remaining the same. And you can start to see the trends already, where things are going. So,
yeah, and I'm sure there was a lot of pivots throughout the journey, and there's going to be more pivots.
Yeah.
Like, what's that? Staying that. We were talking about it on Clubhouse the other day, keeping that 20% of extra time or available space to pivot this direction or that direction.
Absolutely.
Such as like when Grant Cardone came into Matt's, he's able to pivot and take that challenge on. You seem like someone that would be perfect for that opportunity also. I'm just curious now thinking about it. What would you do? Say you were on the Undercover Billionaire. They walked in and the whole opportunity happened where some random guy wanted to help you out with your business. What would you do in that scenario?
Man, that's an excellent question. And of course, we the ideas are skewed there as far as starting a marketing agency in Pueblo, Colorado. But I think it's any business where you can start to create an ongoing transaction, and an ongoing relationship and scale it. So I know that's really generic, but are you asking like specific industry or what?
No, I'm just scenario wise. We're just talking scenario,
right.
like if an undercover billionaire unknown walked in and he was like, "Hey, I don't have no money, but I want to work with you," and how
if I was in Matt's seat, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And I have thought about that. I'm like, what would make me actually write somebody a check now? And man, I give huge applause to Matt, and obviously, we've talked about it. There's more to that backside of that story, to write somebody a check. I'm a big believer in people, though. So if somebody walked in and said, "Hey," and they showed the intentionality, right, and they showed this level of passion, and wouldn't give up, it's like, okay, I'll take a go.
Yeah.
Because I'm always curious, like, hey, where's that going to take me?
For sure. And then once you pair yourself up with somebody that has that type of charisma and passion, shaking things up for you, and that also just wants to help you out,
Right.
And that's kind of similar, like, building relationships is huge in business and networking and all that. You and Matt have a pretty awesome relationship. Tell me about how that all started.
That actually simply started at GrowthCon last year. I think my wife and I were some of the first ones to greet him and Jenny at the Cardone Venture Room at GrowthCon, and just go out. Hey, welcome to the community, basically, because they were new essentially in the community, and that's how it simply started.
Yeah, and I think that's crazy. I think that's so awesome how you could go to an event like that and walk out and have lifelong relationships that could blossom into really anything.
Right. Well, and I think when you connect with people at events like that, you can get a read real quick on who's authentic or not. And it goes back to something that I remember Gary Brecka. If you guys don't know who Gary Brecka is, look him up. I think you guys know who Gary Brecka is. He's part of the 10X family. But he talked about in Dubai when we were doing a 10X event there, the frequency of authenticity. And so it's like whenever you walk into a room and you meet somebody else and you have an interchange, you can usually get a good vibe of, hey, I like this guy, or I like this person, or they're not after something ulterior with me, or whatever the case may be. So I think you walk in with the right intentionality. And that's how relationships get started.
Yeah. So what kind of tips would you give to somebody, say, coming to Undercover Billionaire Bootcamp, and what kind of tips could they do to maybe spark those type of relationships with the other people that are attending?
Right. And that's an excellent question too. So the first thing that I think that you need to get clear on for coming to Undercover Billionaire Bootcamp is, what's your intention on coming? Are you coming here? Is it just another event? If it's just another event, I encourage you strongly, like, what's your intention of what you're hoping to walk away from this? Because like the Undercover Billionaire Bootcamp, you have a scenario where you go from 0 to 5.5 in a period of 42 days, essentially, to wind up. What are all the mechanics? What's the mindset? What's the small pieces that are so simple that you would normally just look beyond?
Right.
That was a part of why that happened even. Right? So I look at that like, hey, what was the simple thing? It was this relationship, and then this relationship. What's the domino effect? So the first thing first, look at what intentionality you have right now. Start writing it down. Right? What do you hope to walk away from this? Do you hope to make 5, 10 good connections? Yeah. I mean, we got a room for 150 people plus, right?
You could hit all of them.
Oh, exactly. So, hey, what are you going to walk away relationship-wise? What's your intentionality? What are you going to walk away information-wise? Because there's going to be this process of before, during, and after this whole thing happened, right? what was the type of guy that Matt was in his community that led him to be the connection point where Grant gravitated and connected with him, right? So, I think then be honest with yourself. Hey, are you doing the same thing?
Right.
You know, and is there room for improvement? If so, then make an adjustment.
Yeah, laying down that foundation just like you did.
Yeah. So just start. You know, quit overthinking it. Just go out and start. You're going to get it wrong the first time. It's okay.
Right.
You know, you're going to bumble in the connections. I mean, I went to a lot of GrowthCons before you know, last year's GrowthCon, and man, I really botched up a lot of connections.
Yeah.
You know, so hey, readjust.
What are some like the main things you've learned going to an event like GrowthCon, and what can people possibly expect to learn that would be very vital and important to them, not only in the business sense, but also, like you mentioned the word spiritually, what would be important for them in an event like that as well?
On an event like that, it would be, you know, go in with clarity as far as where you want to make those connections at. And I think if I'm understanding your question right too, proximity. Don't waste the opportunities. You know, I always like to see hey, can I be the first one there and the last one out?
Nice.
You know,
It's a good goal to have going in
open
that.
the place up, close the place down, because you never know what relationships you're going to connect and walk away from. You might be able to be a part of a conversation when you're like, you know, that's one thing in business I never thought of. Wow, that one piece of information that you walk away with could be the game changer for you. And so when I go to a lot of the GrowthCon events, the workshops, those types of things, I'm only after one or two pieces of information. And that could be over a couple days. And it could be a piece of information I already knew, but I didn't realize I lost the grasp of how impactful that could be.
Sure.
Right? So, I mean, and to me, that's worth the investment of $10,000, $20,000, $35,000.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you get the different perspective of the different people on the same subject. It's super awesome to stay fluid in that whole, like,
Right.
I know it, but I don't know all of it. I don't know everything about it, so let's go ahead and find out from this other
Right.
person what their perspective is on it.
Right. I always love going into those events like, hey, I know nothing.
Yeah.
I'm an empty slate.
A blank slate. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm an empty slate. Hey, I just know nothing at all. What can I walk away if I was going to start a business from scratch today? All right. Now, a lot of the people that are going to be showing up at this already have a business. Okay, so just imagine, though, you're starting from scratch, day one. Don't get locked in, though, to how you've always done them. You know, how you've always done it, right? But just what's the information like out of UBB? It's like, hey, you're starting, blank slate. How would I start it today? If I were to just copy this blueprint, you know, where do I need to fill the gaps in?
Beautiful. And so say that you don't know all that much about social media. Can you talk
Right.
about how this is going to help somebody, an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe somebody who runs a small business? Can you talk about how this event is going to help that person kind of leverage their company and maybe market themselves in a new way, in a way they maybe didn't necessarily think they would ever do?
Right. No, and that's a good one too. I think that people will walk away with is really understanding that, hey, at the end of the day, creating a business there is about making connections with people. Even if you're selling a product to another business, you're still connecting with people. That's still the root base of everything there. So social media plays a big part in that. The more that you can present and share with who you are, how you do it, so people can gain a better understanding of who you are. They can build a trust relationship. That's the power of social media, and it's the power of content. I've invested tens of thousands of dollars every single year on content, just simply because I believe it works. It's a long play. But in addition to that, I want to go get traction on that. That traction is going to come from things like ad spend. It's going to come from being at events like this, right? That's more traction that I can drive over my social media, because they're going to go look at, hey, who's this guy, this chief data disruptor guy, or
Right.
whatever, right? Who is this guy? So they're going to go look it up. And if your picture's empty, well, don't expect them to call you,
Right.
right? So fill your picture. Don't be a perfectionist about it.
Just send it.
Doesn't have to be
Full
perfect.
send.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to get better at it. People aren't going to see it anyway, right? Not right now anyway, not until you start making some noise. You just have to get yourself out there. So, for anybody that's considering, for example, coming to UBB, it's like, hey, just make the decision, just go. if you don't trust yourself, trust me, trust Matt.
There you go.
Show up. Trust Grant and show up at UBB if you don't trust yourself.
And we've heard people that have registered and they've said the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people are doing it.
I mean, the guest list is already looking awesome. I mean, just being in the crowd is just the networking, right?
Yeah.
That's the big part of this whole thing for sure.
But if you had to leave, because we're obviously going to dive super deep into you and all your lessons here at UBB in February. But for this podcast, if you could leave this podcast one golden nugget for the people, what would it be?
Put yourself out there.
Put yourself out there.
Just put yourself out there and don't try to think about it.
Yeah, don't overthink it. I do that all the time. I'm always overthinking it.
Shorten the time frame. I'm a heavy analyzer.
Yeah.
I got told a couple years ago, they're like, man, Joel, you wait till you get like 90% of the information before you make a decision, right? You need to shorten that cycle up. And so that's one thing that I found so enlightening. So I found so much growth from that too, is just put yourself out there. Just go. Don't shorten the decision cycle.
So what would you say? What percentage are you at now when it comes to things like that?
I might be like in the 70%
nice.
now,
All right.
Who knows?
You've gotten better in that regard then, I guess.
think I'm improving.
That's still a good range, you know?
I think I'm improving. It's a work in progress.
I think that's all of us, though.
All right.
All right on, Joel. Is there anything else you would like to talk about before we let this one go?
Man, it's just, especially to those that are planning on coming to UBB, show up. You're going to love the event. I know that the whole Wake Up team here, you guys are working feverishly on
Yes, we are.
creating an outstanding experience. And that's part of it that people are going to get. They're going to get the experience. But then as far as like just simply growing your business, it's like take action.
Yeah.
Quit thinking about it.
Invest in
right?
yourself, invest in your team.
Quit waiting for 90% of the information to come in. Just start taking action, start moving forward. Because, you can, a lot of people spend too much time looking backwards. And looking backwards only makes you trip. So move forward, start taking action. You can start today, kick out Instagram lives or whatever the case may be. Pick up that phone, make a phone call.
Which we've talked about. We talked about Instagram Live in the Clubhouse a few days ago. So
Yeah.
and we know the vital importance of that.
Jump on Clubhouse, get on a stage.
Clubhouse is the next big thing too.
Yeah, LinkedIn has their audio program coming out. That's going to be,
that's going to be cool.
That's going to be awesome. So it's like, you need to work with, if you don't have your content put together, your brand put together, you guys need to work with the Wake Up team here. You guys do a phenomenal job at that. And then just simply continue to put yourself out there.
Right on.
That's where we're going to leave it at, I guess.
Yeah, and speaking of the Clubhouse, we have Joel and the Wake Up team, Matt, on Clubhouse every Wednesday. If you guys want to check it out, we're dropping the knowledge every week. So if you guys want to come see Joel, meet Joel, and hear his knowledge on stage here at Wake Up Pueblo, we are going to be here live February 25th and 26th. And for our VIPs, we have the 24th and 27th. So you could go ahead and jump on the links below in the podcast, and we're going to see you guys there. Take action. Awesome. We're going to have other awesome people like Ken Jocelyn. Yeah, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
We got Ken Jocelyn coming, RJ Messenger, a lot of big people. So, yeah. I mean, that's it. We love talking to Joel today, and we're going to go in deeper. It's only just begun.
As Matt likes to say.
Yeah.
That's right.
You guys only seeing the surface here in the podcast. This guy's really incredible. Spending a couple of days with him has been awesome, and I can't wait to further the relationship with you.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Love working with you guys.
It's going to be a great event, and as always, it was great having you guys here. Jacob Rivera, Joel Buhr, who is the president of First Direct, and Chief Data Disruptor.
Let's roll, yeah.
Let's do it. Thank you guys for listening. This has been the Wake Up Pueblo podcast. We'll see you next time. Thank you.